Young men in this election voted for Donald Trump by a wider margin than last time, and the big question is why. Everyone is trying to dive into it and figure out why they found him to be more appealing than in the past. And for context, 55% of young male voters, that's 18 to 29, voted for Trump this election. Back in 2020, it was 41%. So it was already a significant share of young men, but it's obviously more now, and in fact, the majority there. Now, if you look at young women, 58% backed Harris. So there's a big gap right there, demanding an answer. And Glamour talked to some of the young men to find out why they think they supported Donald Trump. So a lot of the men said that they voted for him not because they were anti-choice and liked, stripping away more rights from women, or against human rights, or even that they bought into the whole pro-masculinity thing that Donald Trump somehow has been able to make himself adjacent to, despite everything about his life and look and all of that. It's something more abstract for some of them. It's about what it's like to be a man in this culture. And so Benji Backer said, I feel like there's this cultural frustration that young men have that they're not allowed to be young men. That probably went too far. No one's telling women they can't be women. I'd just like to stick a pin in that. I think you need to do a bit of a fact check on people policing what women can or should do, because it's kind of a thing. And not just recently. I did some searching around, and men have weighed in on what women should or should be allowed to do for all of the time. Every time they did that. But anyway, I get what Benji is saying. They feel like they're being policed too much these days. And he continues to say, we feel really blamed for things that we haven't had an opportunity to impact, which is an interesting point. Okay, let's see what he means there. I've always prioritized that in everything that I do. He says that he's tried to ensure pay equity across his business. I've always prioritized that in everything that I do. And so it doesn't feel good to feel like I'm being blamed. I get told all the time, you're a white man, sit down and wait your turn. And it's look, he's saying that he's told that constantly. And I don't want to claim that that's not true, but you're being told that constantly. People are literally saying to you, you're a white man, sit down and wait your turn. I'm a white man. I don't think anyone's ever told me that, but maybe he has. And it's well, I can't change the fact that I'm white. I can't change the fact that I'm a man. I can't change the fact that decades or centuries ago, people made bad decisions. All I can do is do what I can do now. And what I'm doing is treating people as fairly as possible, because that's what I firmly believe in. And look, I get part of that. If there is a person that claims that you are personally responsible for centuries of white supremacy, then that seems wrong. I don't think that that's nearly as common as right-wingers claim it is, I will say. But he says he just tries to make good decisions. I would also say it's not just decades and centuries ago. Kind of happening right now still. That's sort of the fundamental issue, is that we as a culture have never come to grips with what our government is actually like, what its policies have actually done. And we're already trying to distance ourselves from them by literally implying that it's decades or centuries, when it's still very much ongoing. That said, I appreciate the perspective. Yaz, what do you make of what he said?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because I imagine that being a white man in this country today is very difficult. And I say that because that's what they keep telling us. They keep telling us that it's very difficult to be a white man today in this country. I don't see it. To me, it seems like white men have all the advantages that they had before. And as a not white man, as a decidedly not white man in this country, I live an okay life, right? I'm very comfortable. I just married a white man last weekend, just because he's a good guy and I like him. I love him, right? But, it is interesting because there is a difference in the way he and I see the world and the way we experience the world, and the ways in which we were raised within this world, right? A lot of cultural differences. A lot of people who are mad at me for marrying a white man, and I know because they're in my DMs all the time talking about
Oh
it.
my God.
But yeah, it's like a whole thing. But what's interesting to me about this whole narrative is that a lot of people who really are not oppressed in their life love to feel like they're oppressed in their life, right? They love to think that the whole world is out against them. And the thing is, they do have struggles. And for whatever reason, they feel as if their struggles are not being heard or valued or addressed, right? To be fair, everybody else has struggles. Arguably, their struggles are more significant than that of which the average white man endures in his life. And those would presumably take precedent over the white man's struggle in this country, because I don't know, even saying that feels weird to me. But it is interesting because there's all these. It's really a matter of perspective. It's a matter of what you're exposed to in your life, and it's a matter of just there's a lack of empathy there, right? And it's what you mentioned in when you were talking about how we never address the injustices of the past in any kind of reasonable or adequate way, and so those problems do not just go away. There's always going to be there festering underneath, and you can't just say, you know what, this is the modern era, I didn't do that, so let's
Yeah.
just move on from it, because they're still being perpetuated in obvious and less obvious ways, right? You have all the systemic ways that it's being perpetuated, but then also the fact that we just elected like a misogynistic racist man to be our president.
Yeah, definitely agree. Well, look, again, whether we agree with the particular points, it's important to hear them out, to try to understand.
Yeah.
And look, they got the president that they want, and they've got the Senate and they got the House. So if what they're saying is actually the reason that their lives are difficult, well, then they'll get better. They got what they wanted. Now, if it
Yeah.
doesn't get better, then that implies that maybe that's not actually the cause of all of their problems.
Yeah.
And I don't pretend to know for sure, but I will be looking and we will see.